Please give a warm welcome to Xiomára.
Thank you so much for all the organization that has happened to make this evening. I'm so happy to be here. You guys don't even know. Some of you know my story and have been along supporting my heart in the journey back to my people and the place that I came out of the earth from. I am a Muisca woman from occupied Colombia. Muisca territory is in the Andes Mountains over most of so-called Bogota, which is the capital city of Colombia, and stretches north of Bogota. I am from a stolen generation. My mother was tricked by Child Protective Services, who knew that she couldn't read or write, to sign her fingerprint, signing away her rights to her children who were stolen and taken to CPS by our babysitter who didn't want to do her job.
Hello, I come from the Mishwal Wapo people. When I say land back, I want y'all to go land back. All right, land back. Land back. Beautiful. All right, so. Land back. Decolonize the earth where your mind at. Indigenous soul, very fine that. All around the world in alignment. Land back. Decolonize the earth where your mind at. All around the world in alignment. See the new dawn on the horizon. We're dependent on our mother, we are not the owners. And for us to coexist, we got to get to know what language in the land shape each other over time. Native tongues, we got medicine deep inside. We were stolen from her land, now she wants us back. Native ceremonies help get us back on track. There is nothing that can keep us from our sacred places. Ancestors calling us, they recognize our faces. Real question is, do we recognize ourselves, or do we fight over who suffered more from what was dealt? The solution is more than a quiet wealth. What we need is a higher quality of health. Everybody benefits from growing greater seeds. Every ecosystem thrives in diversity. Native voices rise up for the comeback. Give us back to the land and we heal that. Repatriation, reparation, and regeneration. Worldwide liberation, worldwide illumination. Repatriation, reparation, and regeneration. Worldwide liberation, worldwide illumination. Land back, water, Ati Shellmound, Dini Okwe Adina, Dini Shawe Adisha, Hinaka, Dini Numu Anuema, Dini Numa Atupenta, Orishe Hushi Tushta. Remember those seeds that we used to sow, pass through the dreams that we used to know. Remember those ways of the natural, giving all praise to the material. Lineage, it can never be material. Object, no profit, no cereal. Codes could be placed on the elements. Show nothing but respect to our relatives. To maintain life that's relevant. No corporation should be selling it. With the hands in the pockets of the lobbyists. We stand with the people, no politics. Restoration, the new prerogative. Only take what we need and leave offerings. All the nations play a part in this. Ancient trade routes across continents. Repatriation, reparation, and regeneration. Worldwide liberation, worldwide illumination. Repatriation, reparation, and regeneration. Worldwide liberation, worldwide illumination. Land back, decolonize the earth where your mind at. Indigenous soul, very fine that. All around the world in alignment. Land back, decolonize the earth where your mind at. All around the world in alignment. See the new dawn on the horizon. Ati Shellmound, Dini Okwe Adina, Dini Shawe Adisha, Himeka, Dini Numu Anuema, Dini Numa Atupenta, Orishe Hushi Susha.
These people get smart. When they get smart, they humble themselves and they realize the destruction that they've caused, maybe unintentionally. The mining, the dams, the pipelines, has a cumulative effect, and that effect is devastating. And by returning the land to the people who were chosen by Creator to steward those lands in our own way, we can reestablish the guidelines so we can reincorporate safety measures, so we can develop codes to protect these these waters. It's not just about returning the land, it's much more than that. And then our future will be secured.
Hi,
Thank you for being here. I'm part of the Palestinian youth movement. So I want to talk a little bit today about the connections between indigenous and Palestinian struggles here on Turtle Island, all the way to Palestine. And it's called ThangsTaken, right? So we got to talk a little bit about so-called Thanksgiving. And what the real story is, Thanksgiving, we've been sold is a story about cooperation and harmony, and that's what we hear here in American public schools. But really we understand it in its true political origins, as one rooted in violence, one rooted in dispossession, and settler colonial domination, nothing less. So the real story of Thanksgiving begins in 1637 with the massacre of the Pequot people. So when English settlers came to so-called Connecticut, what did they want? Expansion of territory, an ethnic cleansing of the indigenous people who posed resistance to them. So 1637, 700 Pequot men, women, children are massacred in a village close to what they called the Mystic River. And following this massacre, the English settlers declared a day of victory and celebration over their massacre of the indigenous Pequot people, and that's what they called Thanksgiving. So let there be no mistake. What is seen as a harmless celebration is really a celebration of a genocidal act of violence. And it's an attempt to rewrite that history to the settler narrative. Thanksgiving is nothing less than an imperial tool that reinforces myths that settlers claim that colonization is somehow a moral act, that somehow they can absolve the settlers of the responsibilities to the atrocities that they have committed and continue to commit. We know that the attempts by the empire are really in vain because we're not fooled. And we know the lies. We know that the true face of the so-called United States is one of a genocidal settler colony, and they can't hide that from us. That's right. So we have a duty today. We have a duty every day to critique this settler holiday and recognize instead the long history of indigenous struggles. We have a duty to support indigenous-led efforts to reclaim land, culture, and sovereignty. And in every instance in which it comes up, we have to challenge these colonial myths and teach accurate histories of one, the brutality of settler violence, and two, the dignity and resistance that indigenous people have always held in the face of settler violence. ThangsTaken, rather, should be about indigenous resistance to the barbarism of colonialism. And it's a testament that the history of indigenous resistance paves the way in our roadmap to liberation. Because we as Palestinians, we know what settler colonialism is. And we know it can never be moral, it can never be principled. We know that alongside our indigenous brothers and sisters and siblings, that we share a lineage of struggle. We know that the indigenous communities here on Turtle Island are also survivors of genocide, survivors of ethnic cleansing. And these are all tenets that we understand as Palestinians who are facing an ongoing genocide as we speak. And we understand that through these shared experiences, that we have a necessity to be in joint struggle. We have a necessity to stand in unity when we face an enemy as big as US imperialism and settler colonialism. Because we too are indigenous. But we understand indigeneity is not just because we have been there. It's not just because we come from the land of Palestine, but because the land creates us as we are. And it's because, not that we have a sense of purity through blood quantum or through genetics, but because our indigeneity comes from a political duty to defend our land. It becomes from a duty to protect our people wherever they resist against settler colonialism. Because we came from the land long before settler colonialism or the Zionist entity existed. And that land gave us our sense of identity, our steadfastness, our bravery, our courage to be able to face disproportionate violence. It's that land that allowed us to look down the barrel of a gun and see God and see victory. And it's the land that carries the spirit of hundreds of thousands of martyrs, Palestinian martyrs, indigenous martyrs, that has allowed our seeds to continue to grow and embed us with that same spirit of resistance that our martyrs have held. One of the core pillars of Palestinian resistance is an idea called tarakum in Arabic, which means accumulation. And it means an accumulation of all of the spirits who have come before us, everybody who has sacrificed their lives. Martyr in Arabic is shaheed, which means witness. And they're witnesses to the brutal, the violence that ended with their death, but they're also witnesses to the incredible resilience and resistance that led to their sacrifice. And we understand that we are filled with the spirits of hundreds of thousands of Palestinians that have resisted since the British came, but not just that we are learning and continue to learn from 500 years of indigenous resistance here on Turtle Island. The key to any successful struggle is to understand the necessity of the lessons our elders have given to us. But the enemy makes it difficult. What happens to our elders? Oftentimes they're assassinated or imprisoned, and we lose connection with the history of our struggle. But that's why we need to understand the importance of history, the importance of study, so that we know that our elders, even if they are martyred, even if they are passed, they stand with us, and we have studied their history, we've studied their victories, their mistakes, their sacrifices, their character, and we can allow that to embody our struggle today. Because our elders, our ancestors, have not truly died if we carry them with us. So that's why we as Palestinians have understood the deep, deep necessity to be in joint struggle with our indigenous brothers and sisters. And that history isn't just today. I mean, let's talk about history. Let's talk about the history that they'll never teach you in schools. From the 1970s, the Palestinian Liberation Organization saw the work that AIM was doing here on Turtle Island. And they were actually invited to the Standing Rock Sioux Reservation in 74 for the first International Indigenous Treaty Council. And what did they do there? They were there to protect them. They were armed. They were security. They were making sure that whatever infiltration, whatever the feds or the governments did to try and infiltrate those council meetings, they were willing to sacrifice their lives and protect their indigenous brothers and sisters here. And that connection didn't end in the 70s. It continued day after day between AIM, between the PLO, and today through the PYM. The Palestinian Youth Movement has understood this necessity so deeply. We sent a delegation to Standing Rock to help water protectors. But we understood it's not just national campaigns too. Here locally, with the Save West Berkeley Shellmound, Run for Salmon, and amongst many other local campaigns, we have an intimate connection because our liberation struggles are tied. We will not be liberated until all indigenous people are liberated. Because it's not just a responsibility we have to our own land, we have a responsibility to the land of all indigenous people. And it's a duty for us in the struggle for liberation for Palestine to stand and fight shoulder to shoulder with our indigenous siblings. Because wherever there is indigenous resistance, we must support. Wherever there is indigenous resistance, we understand that our struggles are connected and they're part of that accumulation of knowledge. And us fighting today, we're going to continue to add to that accumulation, and we will plant the seeds for the next generations to grow up and inshallah grow a stronger movement than what we've been able to build. Because when we fight against imperialism, when we fight against an enemy that is so grave and big and outweighs us in terms of their power and domination and brutality, we have something they can never have. We have steadfastness. We have unity, and we are aligned in the political principles of building future. And that's what organizing is. It's future building. Because we are imaginaries, we create, and we understand that we need to be able to create a future that we might not be able to envision or grasp right now in this moment. And that's what Land Back is. Land Back is a deeply political act. Why? To the settler colony, land is everything. It's their land base from which they can extract materials for war, from which it launches its wars of domination. But without that land base, the US empire could never exist. And that's why they know the people who have the deepest connection to land are their first victims. But we're also those who will never stop resisting. So, recognizing indigenous struggle means working to bring land back under indigenous care and confronting U.S. imperialism in all its forms. Land back is a relationship with Mother Earth, where indigenous people are its stewards. Land back is moving our people towards liberation and sovereignty through a political movement. Land back is recognizing the long legacy of our warriors, leaders, and martyrs who have sacrificed their lives for the liberation of our land. And land back is acknowledging that only when Mother Earth is well can us, her children, be well, because we belong to the land. And land back is not just an idea, it's a reality. And it's a movement that has existed for generations. It's the return of the Dulue Island to the Wiyot tribe. It's the Aztlan tribe reclaiming 1,200 acres of their ancestral homelands in Big Sur. It's the centuries-long fight to reclaim the Black Hills. And this is something that Bill Means said himself. The Black Hills are not for sale. And the Black Hills are their Jerusalem. Because when the so-called United States offered the Sioux 17 million, what did they say? The Black Hills are not for sale. Because sometimes it's bigger than just a check, and that's something a settler can never understand. Our land has no price tag. So when Bill Means went to Palestine and he saw the importance of Jerusalem to us, he understood that him and Palestine would forever be connected. Because no matter what money they throw at us, Jerusalem has no price. And the Black Hills has no price. Because we have dignity, we have principles. And our land is not something that can be bought. For us indigenous people, land ownership is not something understood in a capitalist way. It's not that we use land and exploit it for its resources, but we know that people are the land. We have a responsibility to the land, to fight for it, to caretake it. So we know the land doesn't belong to us, but we belong to the land. And we are extensions of it, both materially and spiritually. So let me leave you with these last words. We as Palestinians, we're not the first indigenous people to fight against colonization, and we won't be the last. We remain committed to fighting with our indigenous relatives here on Turtle Island until we can all realize the dream of land back and show that it's not just a theory. It's something we will realize within this lifetime or the next. But together we ground ourselves in the wisdom of our ancestors, in the wisdom of our martyrs, and the commitment that our elders have showed time and time again for this struggle. Because the greatest threat to the enemy is the unity that we show as indigenous people. The greatest threat to them is that we will never give up, that we have a steadfastness that will outlast any administration, that our duty is to the land. So for as long as our land exists, we will resist. Thank you.
Indigenous Justice. Morningstar founded this organization from a series of individual fellowship awards that she won in response to incidents of violence in her own community. And she's grown that into what is now a standalone 501c3 organization. It's a really huge accomplishment of her individual love and labor for community over the last 8, 9, 10 years, 15 years. We're super proud to work with her and to work for her and to continue to forward her vision for Indigenous justice for California tribal and intertribal communities across California. We have absolutely continued to develop out the scope of work with missing and murdered Indigenous peoples. We have the privilege to partner with the City and County of San Francisco to pilot what is the first of its kind guaranteed income program for survivors of violence. We're giving 10 Indigenous survivors of violence in San Francisco $1,000 a month for 12 months. And building evidence to forward that movement and grow it across the state as non-carceral strategies to address intimate partner violence, gender-based violence. And so we're really excited about that. We're about midway through, and the report on that, super exciting to people like me, will be available in the summer of next year. We'll be able to talk about all of the impacts and how much opportunity has come from that. And so that work continues to grow, and we do lots of statewide policy work for MMIP. We recently passed what's called the Feather Alert, so you might have seen some of those alerts come out now, so when an Indigenous person goes missing when a person goes missing, the CHP will coordinate an alert which mandates that they expend resources to find that relative, because in the past we were having a lot of issues with folks not being searched for. You might have heard like missing white woman effect, or like the Gabby Petito case, where like every resource was expended to look for Gabby, but when Native women go missing in those same very places, people go missing, there's not as much of an investment made to find them. And so with policies like this, we can hold state and federal systems accountable to expending their resources to bringing our relatives home.
Palestine, you know that your struggle is mine. And all those who have been subjugated by imperialism. Palestine, you know that your struggle is mine, ours, and all those who survived genocide and continue to survive genocide. Palestine, you know your struggle is mine, and all those who suffer from grief, and all those recovering from the horror of death, murder with impunity at the hands of colonial empire funded by the United States of America. Palestine!
Has anybody been with us while we were demonstrating outside of the Bay Street Mall? So, again, these demonstrations that we have held for many years came out of the walk that started in 2005, where we walked from Shellmound to Shellmound every year around Thanksgiving time. For 4 years, starting in 2005, we walked the Shellmounds that were documented by Nels Nelson in a map in 1909 that documented over 425 Shellmounds in this area, in the Bay Area. And Shellmounds for us are sacred sites, which I feel like a lot of you all know that already. And so that went for 4 years. And then after the walk was done, we decided that every year, the day after Thanksgiving, on the biggest shopping day of the year, we would demonstrate outside of Bay Street Mall. That, again, sits on top of one of our largest shell mounds.
And one of the most shameful things is to those developers that desecrated that shell mound, like they just said the largest shell mound, like they literally have the audacity to like build like a small representation of like what a shell mound is. So if, for those of y'all who have been there, I don't know if y'all seen like the smallest mound that's supposed to uplift the history here of my relatives, and it's unacceptable. Last year, we dedicated the Shellmound to Shellmound Walk in solidarity with our Palestinian relatives. Our struggles are intertwined, they're braided together, and you know, the West Berkeley Shellmound is the oldest village site as well as gathering space. So in a way, it still serves that purpose. For me, that place has been a place where I actually learned about Palestine. I learned about Mauna Kea. I learned about what's going on in the Amazon. There's been so many people from all kind of interfaith people there that have gathered in that place to show their support, to preserve that place. And last year, about 4,000 people showed up. It's kind of scary to see so many people show up, but also it's very powerful because we were able to shut down the Bay Street Mall for over 5 hours.
So this year's walk is dedicated to our elder Wounded Knee Campbell, who passed away. Wounded Knee has been monumental in saving the protection of many sacred sites, not just for us, but for people all around the world. He was the longest walker, part of every single longest walk, and he completed all of them. Wounded Knee was one of those people where if you asked him to show up, he was there. The reason occupation happened at Sogorea in what is now known as Vallejo was because of him. It's because he reached out to my mom and he reached out to Janella LaRose that that site was occupied for 109 days. And so had it not been for him, we might not have been able to protect that site. So this year's walk is dedicated to him and all of those who have come before us and all of those who are coming after us. We want to uplift him in all of the work that he did and all of the work that people are doing to protect their own sacred sites around the world. Again, we want to invite everybody here to come to that demonstration, that walk, that prayer walk. That is a 3-mile prayer walk starting at 1900 4th Street at the West Berkeley Shellmound and walking to the Emeryville Shellmound at Bay Street Mall. We want to invite people to come and set those prayer downs because every step is a prayer. Every time you walk in these walks, every time he walked in those walks, every time somebody has had a walk to highlight these places, they're a prayer. And so we want to invite everybody to bring your prayers to that walk that's going to happen on Friday. We have a table in the other room, Sogorea does, where there's more information and flyers about it. If you don't know about Sogorea, Sogorea is an Indigenous women-led land trust and the first Indigenous women-led land trust in the country. And it's based here in Ohlone territory, which is my traditional territory. So please come if you can. Again, it's 3-mile walk from one Shellmound to the next. And so if you can imagine, those were how close our village sites were to one another, because each Shellmound had a village site next to it. So thank you all.
Thank you. Oh, this is Wounded Knee right here. This beautiful photo of Grandpa Wounded.